Okay, so I think everyone is here. So, hello everyone. I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Tanya Kalaitzidis, and I'm an assistive technology specialist for the Media Accessibility Project and for CUNY Assistive Technology Services, also known as CATS. Again, a quick disclaimer. I'm going to be recording this session, this webinar, so just make sure that your cameras are turned off because I will be emailing the webinar by the end of this week. So welcome everyone to our technically second webinar. This is just a repeat session of the webinar we had on July 30th. And so this webinar is just going to be a quick introductory on accessibility for Microsoft Word and PDF documents. I'm going to be going over steps on how to make these documents accessible, not just for students with disabilities, but for students in general. Okay. Give me 1 second. There we go. So jumping right in, I'm first going to talk about what exactly accessibility is and why it's important for digital content to be accessible to students. So accessibility as a definition is the design of products, services, and environments that can be accessed and used by people with various abilities and disabilities. So for example, you may see wheelchair accessible ramps or wheelchair accessible restrooms, or even so much as having an elevator makes an area a little more accessible. And usually we associate accessible areas with this symbol right here, right? But how does accessibility pertain to digital documents on a computer? So students with disabilities frequently rely on assistive technology software to use a computer. So for example, blind students frequently use screen reading software to navigate a computer and to have content read out loud to them. And one common screen reading software we have is JAWS, and that's actually a software we provide for CUNY. And when you're on a computer and you turn on JAWS, a voice will start reading out loud what it detects on the screen. And as the student navigates the computer using keystrokes, it will continue reading out loud. However, content will only get read properly if they were made accessible. And it can be easy to prepare an inaccessible document by not following necessary steps. So for example, for students who use a screen reader, PDF documents need to be OCR'd, and I'll be going over that in just a bit. And both PDF and Microsoft Word documents need to have proper tags and headings, and they need to contain alternate text for images. And for students who don't use screen readers, or let's say a student with a learning disability who doesn't use any assistive technology, information needs to be displayed clearly in a proper order with no distracting colors or images. So digital content has to be made accessible whether students use assistive technology or not. So why is accessibility important? First of all, it's the right thing to do because it removes barriers for students with disabilities. If a student is, let's say, taking a class and a professor has most of the content posted on Blackboard, it can be a huge obstacle for the student if that content has not been made accessible. So by making course content accessible, you are providing equal access for all students. Also, by making your course content accessible, you're taking part in universal design, which means that you are providing access for all students, no matter their ability or disability. And I always like to show this image on the right when I talk about universal design. So in this image, there's a student in a wheelchair who says, or who asks, could you please shovel the ramp? And the person shoveling says, all these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, then I will clear the ramp for you. And then the student responds by saying, but if you shovel the ramp, we can all get in. So by creating accessible course content, you clear a path for all students, not just those with disabilities. And also, I just want to quickly mention the law. So the Rehabilitation Act and Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So according to these laws, we have to make any digital content accessible for students with disabilities. So Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, that declares civil rights for individuals with disabilities, and Section 508 sets requirements for accessible technology. And Title II of the ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, it prohibits discrimination. So inaccessible content is a form of discrimination. So these are the laws that's just something to keep in mind. So now that we got all that out of the way, it's time to jump in to the guidelines. So I'm first going to start with the Microsoft Word Accessibility Guideline. So I actually want to first say that it's always easier to make a document accessible right from the beginning, rather than remediating the document later on. So to start, it's best to have your document as simple as possible with little use of color. So this is to prevent any distractions for those with any learning disabilities or even those with low vision. Also, you want to ensure that color is not the only means of conveying information. So, for example, let's say you have a syllabus that contains books that students should get for the class, right? And there's a list of books that's in red, that's mandatory for the students, and a list in blue that's optional for the students. So this right here is not accessible because screen readers cannot detect colors. And we also have to keep in mind that students with color blindness may not see those colors. So moving on, you also want to ensure that your documents have sufficient color contrast. So for example, black text on a white background. You want to use accessible, readable fonts. So some examples of these fonts are Arial, Times New Roman, Calibri. These are considered easily readable. So, and you also want to avoid using any of those fancy scripted fonts. And for Microsoft Word, you want to avoid using text boxes. So, and this only applies to Microsoft Word. Like for example, in PowerPoint, the only way to add text is with text boxes. So text boxes in PowerPoint are accessible, but with Microsoft Word, they are not accessible. So screen readers would not be able to detect the text inside of them. So avoid using text boxes. And when it comes to using abbreviations or certain acronyms for maybe names or titles, it's best to use the expanded form. So for example, the word department, right? We usually shorten that word to DEPT when we're typing something up, right? But if a student is using a screen reader and they come across DEPT, it would not get read as department. So it can be confusing for those who use screen readers. So it's best to just use the expanded word. And when it comes to indenting, you want to use the tab button on the keyboard. So it's best to use tab to add indentations and avoid using the space bar to indent, because pressing the space bar a bunch of times will add blank spaces. And screen readers do detect blank spaces. And for Microsoft Word, you want to use heading styles. So this gives screen readers a structured way to navigate the document. And when it comes to links, if you're providing any links in your documents, you want to provide descriptive links. So using click here as a link is not sufficient enough. And you also want to avoid having a long URL, a copy and pasted URL, because that can also be difficult for screen reader users to understand an entire confusing link. If you have any images in your documents, you want to provide alt text or alternate text. So this alt text will get read out loud by screen readers whenever they come across an image. And if you are using tables, you want to make sure that they are simple tables. So you want to avoid using any complex tables that have, let's say, any merged cells or any split cells, because screen readers will not be able to read them properly. If you do have any complex tables, it's best to just split them up into multiple simple tables. And a good thing about Microsoft Word is that it comes with a built-in accessibility checker. So this is a helpful tool when you're making documents accessible, because it will detect most accessibility errors, even though it would not detect all accessibility errors. And I'll be showing you this in just a bit. For example, it won't detect color contrast. It won't detect any fonts that are difficult to read or any small font sizes. So the accessibility checker is just a tool to help you. It's not there to remediate all problems. So now moving on to the PDF accessibility guideline. And before I begin, in order to make a PDF document accessible, you will need to have the Pro version of Adobe Acrobat. And if you don't already have it, the IT department can most definitely give you the Pro version of Adobe Acrobat. So if you need to make a document into a PDF, it's always best to first make it in Microsoft Word, make it accessible there, and then export it as a PDF. So when you do it that way, there's a much less of a chance of coming across any errors this way. But if you have, let's say, a printed document that you need to scan digitally, you have to OCR the document. And when you scan the document, there's a checkbox that says it's to activate OCR. So you have to make sure that that is checked. And OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition. And this turns any scanned text into readable, editable text. So this is important because when you scan a printed document into a digital PDF, even if there's text on a document, it will still get scanned as an image. So it won't get read by a screen reader. And by having OCR activated, and again, this option is available only in Adobe Acrobat Pro. So by doing this, the text will get detected and read by screen readers. So moving on, just like with Microsoft Word, you want to provide alternate text for images. And the main thing with PDF accessibility is to have tags, is to tag the document. So tags in a PDF document they are a hidden structured representation of the content, and this is only for screen reading purposes, for accessibility purposes. So tags don't have a visible effect on the document. So for example, you can tag headings, subheadings, paragraphs, and images, and you also want to make sure that they are in the correct reading order. And again, just like with Microsoft Word, Adobe Acrobat Pro has its built-in accessibility checker. Okay, so these are the guidelines. So now I'm just going to start with the demonstration. And if anyone has any questions, they can just type it in the chat and I'll be able to see it and I'll answer your questions from there. Okay. So let me just go to an inaccessible document that I have. So this is a Word document. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the accessibility checker. And to do that, on a PC, it's File on the top left, and under Info, I'm going to click on Check for Issues, and then I'm going to click on Check Accessibility. So for a Mac, it's a little different. For a Mac, it's going to be under the Review tab. So if you click on the review tab on a Mac, there will be the check accessibility button under here. Whoops, sorry. So I have the accessibility checker open on the right, and it's showing me the errors and warnings in the document. So let's see, the first thing it says missing alt text. And if I click on the errors, it'll take me directly to them. So if I click on picture 2, it took me there. If I click on picture 3, it took me here. So let's go back to the first one. So the first thing we need to do is add alternate text. So I'm going to right click on the image, select format picture, and then I'm going to click on the third icon, which is layout and properties. And then I'm going to click on alt text. So this is where I'll add the description of an image. You can leave title blank. A title is not necessary for images. You can just simply enter a description. And you want the descriptions to be no more than 2 sentences. It's always best to have just 1 sentence describing the image. You don't want a whole paragraph describing an image. So for this one, I'm just going to type, let's say, so it's Queensborough's logo, right? So I'm going to type the yellow and dark blue logo of, oops, sorry, of Queensborough Community College. So notice how right when I add the description that the error for that image went away. And so I'm just going to click on this little X. So this image now has alt text. So let's go now to the next error. So I'll click on this one, picture 3, and it's taking me over here. So I'm going to follow the same steps. So I'm going to right click and then click on format picture. And again, I'm going to click on the third icon, layout and properties, and the description of this image. So let's see. So for this one, it's best to try to be as descriptive as possible. So let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can type a group of 6 people walking on the campus of Queensborough Community College. So again, notice how the error disappeared for that image. So I have alternate text set, and I'm going to click X out of that, and the alternate text automatically saves into the images. So adding alternate text really depends on the context of the document, right? So I just want to talk about an example. Let's say a professor is teaching an art class, right? Or an art history class, and they have an image in the document that's, let's say, just a painting, right? And let's say for this document, it's just talking about, the context is about colors, right? Color used in art. So maybe we want to describe the image as, you know, any colors that are shown in the image. But let's say we have that same image in a different type of document with different context. So for example, if the other context is just talking about, let's say art history, right? So I'm going to describe that image as something else, something that pertains to art history. So alternate text really depends on the context of the document. And again, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat and I'll answer them from there. So moving on, in the accessibility checker, it detects the text box here. So if we click on text box, it'll take us directly to it. So again, screen readers will not be able to detect the text in here. So I'm just going to simply cut and paste the text out of it. And then I'm going to simply delete the text box, and then I'll just paste the heading from there. And then the last thing in the accessibility checker is over here, it says repeated blank characters. So this is what happens if you press the space bar a bunch of times, or also if you press enter to create space a whole bunch of times. So that will create blank character spaces. So just simply delete it, delete the blank spaces, and that error went away. So the accessibility checker says, no accessibility issues found. People with disabilities should not have difficulty reading this document. But there are still some more things we can do to make this document more accessible. So I'm just going to give you a few more seconds to think what else we have to do. Okay, so if you noticed here, the text is a really light gray color. So there isn't sufficient color contrast here. I'm just going to simply make everything black. Oh, what's right here? And you're not limited to just black text on a white background. You can use any color, just make sure that there is sufficient color contrast, and you want to avoid using certain colors, and this is for color blindness or for those with low vision. For example, the oranges and the reds and the greens. So just be aware of what colors you are using. And also notice over here, we have a link. And it says, click here to find out how to become a student at Queensborough Community College. So the link, it didn't show up in the accessibility checker because technically this over here where it says here, this is technically a descriptive link. Because if we right click on the link and select edit hyperlink, there is text and text to display. But it just says here, so click here, right? And that's not sufficient enough because screen readers can they can create a list of links in a document, and they can navigate by link. So if they come across multiple links that say, click here, click here, click here, or read more, read more, read more, those links aren't descriptive enough, and they won't know where that link is taking them. So for this sentence, we might have to retype it, right? I'm just going to add another sentence here. And I'm going to retype it as, find out how to become a student at Queensborough Community College. And I'm just going to go back here to get the link. So I'm going to edit hyperlink and next to address. So this is where we're going to put the URL, but I'm just going to copy and paste it there. So I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to make become a student at Queensborough Community College a link. So if I highlight that sentence or that this phrase and right click and select hyperlink, notice how in text to display it says become a student at Queensborough Community College, and an address is where I'm going to paste the link. So now we have an accessible link. So if a screen reader comes across this link, it will say become a student at Queensborough Community College. So we know where that link is taking them. Okay, so now we have an accessible document. And the next thing I'm going to do actually, before we move on, we have to add headings to the document. So that's another thing that the accessibility checker didn't tell us, right? So headings are actually right up here. So in Microsoft Word on the Home tab, we'll see the heading styles here. So again, it's important to add heading styles for any headings and subheadings in a document for navigational purposes for screen reader users. So this is a title of the document, and I'm going to make this heading 1, right? So I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to select heading 1 in the styles. But notice how it also changed. It changed the font. It changed, pretty much the style of the text, right? Let's say we don't want to change how it looks. We just want to tag it as a heading. So I'm going to undo that. And again, have the text highlighted. And instead of clicking on heading 1, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to click on update heading 1 to match selection. So it didn't change how the text, it didn't change the text, it didn't change how it looks. It just simply added the tag as heading 1. And notice how if we click out of it and we click the text, it'll say heading 1. So that's how we know that it's tagged properly. And over here where it says about, so in my document, I want it to be a subheading or heading 2, right? So I'm going to highlight the text and again, right click on heading 2 and select update heading 2 to match selection. So now I have proper headings in my Microsoft Word document. And now we have an accessible document. So we can go ahead and save it. And I'm actually going to save it as a PDF. So over here where it says save as Adobe PDF. So I believe on a Microsoft Word document and on a Mac, it won't say save. Like on a Mac, it won't say save as Adobe PDF, but you can just simply go to save as. I'll just put it on my desktop. And over here where it says save as type, you can click PDF from here. So both will work. Okay, and then I'm going to click on save. Okay, so I'm just going to open this with Adobe Acrobat Pro. And this version that I have on this computer is DC, which I believe is the latest version of Adobe Acrobat. So this is the PDF that we just saved from Microsoft Word. So when you have a PDF, the first thing you can do is go directly to the accessibility checker. So to do that in a PDF in Adobe Acrobat Pro is to go on the right side. So this toolbar here, if it doesn't show, you can just click on this arrow on the right to expand it and then click on accessibility. So if you just installed my Adobe Acrobat Pro and you opened it up for the first time, accessibility might not show here. So if that happens, you just have to simply search it in the tools. So you go to tools on the top left, search for, accessibility, and you can access it from here. So again, on the right side, I'm going to click on accessibility. So now this toolbar showed up. And the accessibility checker is called full check here. So this will do a full check on the document. So I'll click on that. And you can leave everything checked here and then just simply click on start checking. So now on the right side is where the on the left side is where the accessibility checker will show up. And over here where it says document 3 issues, I'm going to expand on that. So it shows me what passed and what didn't pass, right? So over here it says logical reading order, and it also says title failed, and then it says color contrast. So I'm actually first going to go to the title. So when it says title failed, the title is different than the name of what it's saved as. So if I right click on the error and click on fix, it can take me directly to where I need to fix it. So having a title in your document is just for metadata purposes. And I'm just going to give it the same name as what it's saved as, but I'm going to avoid the dash. So avoid any underscores or dashes, just simply give it the name. So I'm just going to give it the same name, inaccessible document. And then I'm going to click OK. So right when I fixed that error, it passed. So now let's go back to logical reading order. So this isn't an error, it's actually a warning. So we want to make sure that the tags in the document are in a logical reading order, right? So going back to the right side in the accessibility toolbar, I'm going to click on reading order. So if I click on reading order, this box will show up and it's going to show me the tags. And again, tags don't have a visual effect on your document. It's just for screen reading purposes only. So these numbers here, if you see in the tags on the left side of each tag, this indicates the reading order. So for example, the title here will be read first by a screen reader, and we want the image to be read second, right? We want the alt text to be read second, but it's tagged as number 6, right? So that's not in the correct order. And also there's a blank tag here, and then it goes back to 3 and then 7, and then some more blank tags here. So sometimes when you make a document accessible in Microsoft Word and then export it as a PDF, if you go to the reading order, sometimes it will detect blanks in the document, but you can just go ahead and delete those tags because we don't want any empty tags, right? We just want we want the tags on the content. So I'm going to actually delete these blank tags. So I can just right click on them and then delete selected item structure. So that will get rid of that blank tag. So again, for these blank ones down here, I'm going to right click on them. Sorry, let me make sure. Sorry, I might need to zoom in a bit. There we go, and delete selected item structure. And then the same thing for this one here. But notice how for the images, the alternate text transferred to the PDF. So we don't have to add alternate text to these images because we already added them in the Microsoft Word document. So I'm just going to zoom out again. Okay, so it's still not in the correct order. So it goes from 1, 3, 2, and then 4. So to put the tags in the correct order, I'm going back to the reading order box and I'm going to click on Show Order Panel. So that's on the bottom right of the reading order box. I'm going to click on that. And then back on the left side, it's going to show me the reading order. So we're on the first page, and if I click on each tag, it'll take me directly to it. So let's go to the image, which is 3, right? And we want this to be second. So all we have to do is just click and drag it to the second order. And now it's in the correct order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we have everything in the correct reading order. So again, if something is out of order, you'll just click on Show Order Panel. And on the left side, just click and drag the tag to the correct reading order. But let's say this document doesn't have any tags, right? Or let's say you scanned the document. So if this was a scanned document, actually we would have to do something different, which is OCR, right? When I mentioned it before. So that's actually, we're gonna have to go back to the right-hand side over here. We're going to click on Enhance Scans. So let me just find that. Here we go. So let me just close out of it. If this was a scanned document, the first thing we have to do is OCR it. So instead of clicking on accessibility, we'd have to click on Enhance Scans. So this would turn the text into a document into readable, accessible text. So we'll click on Enhance Scans. And up here, I'll click on Recognize Text and in this file. So we don't have to do it for this document, obviously, because it's not a scanned document, but if it was, you just follow those steps. And a way you can tell that a document has been OCR'd is if you're just simply able to highlight the text. So you can either highlight them or you can search through the text. That's how you know text is OCR'd and made accessible. And then after you OCR the document, then you have to manually add tags. So to do that, back in the accessibility checker, sorry, not the checker, just in the accessibility toolbar, I'll click on accessibility and then go to reading order. And to add a tag to a document, so I'm actually just going to clear this page. So I'm going to clear page structure. So by doing that, it just gets rid of the tags. So to add a tag manually, I'm just going to simply click and drag a box around the text or any content in the document. And then I'm going to choose a tag from here in the reading order. So since this is not just text, but it's a title, right? It's a heading. So I want to tag it as heading 1. And for an image, we want to tag the image. So you can either draw a box around the image or you can double click to select it. So the alternate text it's still coming through, but that's because we added it via Microsoft Word. But we still need to tag it. So it's not text, it's a figure, right? So I'm going to select figure. But we're going to have to re-add the alternate text. So just right click on the image that you just tagged and select edit alternate text. Okay, and then I'm going to add a description here. So what did we add before? So a yellow and navy blue logo of Queensborough Community College. And if you click OK, it'll save there. And then over here, so about is a subheading, right? So I'm going to click and drag to select about, and I'm going to tag it as heading 2. And then moving on, there's a paragraph of text. So I'm going to select that entire paragraph. And then I'm just going to tag this as text/paragraph. And again, for this image below, I'm going to double click on it and then select figure to tag it as a figure. So, and to add alt text, I'm going to right click and select edit alternate text. And I'm going to just add the same description as before. So a group of 6 people walking on the campus of Queensborough Community College. And then I'm going to click OK. So this is how we manually add tags. So just keep in mind that if you have lengthy PDFs or any documents that have a lot of content, just keep in mind that it's best to make them as simple as possible, again, for those with learning disabilities, but also because it could take some time to make it accessible when it comes to tagging. So, just that's something to keep in mind if you have lengthy PDFs, just the process of accessibility. Okay, so everything's in the correct order. So I'm just going to close. And I'm going back to the accessibility checker. So I'm going to click on full check again, start checking. So again, logical reading order, this is not an error, it's just a warning, right? It's telling you to manually check the document. So we already checked the reading order of the tags, they're in the correct order. So I'm just going to right click and select pass, okay? And that will pass. And also color contrast. So again, it's not an error. It's not detecting any contrast issues. It's just letting you know to manually check the document. So I'm going to right click and select pass. Okay. And let's see, tagged content failed. So I think we missed something over here on the second page. So we forgot to tag this, but that's okay. All we have to do is just go back to tag it again, and then this error will go away. And so if you have any questions, just type them in the chat box and I'll see them and I'll answer them. So someone asks, When sharing documents like a syllabus with students, do you recommend Word or PDF? So, in general, me personally, I like to recommend Microsoft Word because with PDFs, so Adobe Acrobat Pro isn't a perfect software, especially when it comes to accessibility. So we have a simple document here, so we don't have any accessibility errors or issues, but there have been times when, for example, there have been a lot of times when I've had PDFs that were made accessible, but they would still act finicky, and they wouldn't just they would just not cooperate, and screen readers wouldn't be able to read them. So it's always easier to just share a Microsoft Word document. You don't have to, tag the text or make it the text accessible with OCR. All you just have to do is add the heading styles. In my opinion, it's easier to share Microsoft Word documents. Okay, any more questions? I'll just wait a couple of minutes if anyone else has any more questions. Okay, so we have another question. How do we contact IT to get Adobe Pro? And is there language you recommend we put on our syllabus to let our students know that we want to help address any accessibility issues that arise during the course? So for the first question, you can just simply give a call to IT, talk to them on the phone and say you just need Adobe Acrobat Pro, and I believe they'll come over to your department and install it for you. But you can just either call them or even send them an email saying you need Adobe Acrobat Pro. So for the second part of the question, and to repeat, is there language you recommend we put on our syllabus to let our students know that we want to help address any accessibility issues that arise during the course? So first thing, we don't want to directly, let's see, how should I put this? So you don't want to, let's say, put a student in the direct spotlight in the class, saying, let's say if they look like they have a disability, you don't want to just talk to them in front of your entire class saying, hey, if you need this to be made accessible, talk to your disabilities department. So that's just a confidentiality thing. So in the syllabus, I've actually seen professors put in their syllabus just a small section, usually towards the end, that says, contact the disability services for any additional accommodations. So you can add that in your syllabus. Is it possible for us to get the screen reader program so that we can double check how our documents will be read for our students? Sorry, give me 1 second, everyone. Okay, so absolutely. So the software JAWS that I was talking about, we have an unlimited license for all CUNY campuses. So it's not just for student use, to have them installed on any labs or libraries, but you can absolutely have it installed on your computer in your department. You can actually send me an email and I can send you all the installation files that's needed for JAWS. And I will show my email right now. So you not only have to reach out to me, but if you reach out to your campus on the Disability Services Office on your campus, you can also get the installation from there. So someone else asks, would you know if IT has a way for us to have Adobe Pro on our home computers since much work is often done at home? I believe with Adobe Acrobat Pro, you'll have to double check with IT, but I think you can install it on more than one computer. I think it's 2, and that computer can be a home computer because you register with your school email. So I believe you can. You just have to double check with IT. And also someone shared a helpful link. So I'm just going to open it for everyone to see. So someone shared a helpful link with creating accessible syllabi. So this is a link here, and it's in the chat for everyone to see. Any more questions? I'll just wait about another minute or so. Okay, so again, my contact is here. Let me just make this full screen again. So I hope this webinar was helpful. Again, it was simple introductory to Microsoft Word and PDF accessibility. We'll be doing a lot more trainings in the future, so just keep an eye out for them. And send me an email if you have any more questions. And I will see you guys soon. And yes, I'm going to be sharing the slides with everyone in the webinar. I'm also going to be sharing the recording of this webinar. So if you know anyone who wasn't able to make it to this session, you can just send them the recording. And I'm also going to be sending out our training manuals and guidelines for accessibility. So I'll be sending all of that out to everyone here. Okay, thank you everyone.